Level 1. The Dreamer. You're 13 years old and the sound reaches you before the bike does. A deep, uneven growl rolling down the street, getting louder, and then a motorcycle rider leans into the corner near your house and disappears around the bend before you even see the make. You run to the window every time you hear that sound now. You don't know the difference between an inline-4 and a V-twin yet, but you know the feeling the sound gives you, something between fear and want. You start watching MotoGP on a laptop propped against your pillow late at night, knees pressed to your chest. You memorize the way riders drag their knees through corners at speeds that don't seem survivable. You print a poster of a rider mid-lean, sparks coming off the knee slider, and tape it above your desk. You don't have a license. You don't have a bike. You have a bicycle you ride too fast down the hill behind your school, pretending the wind noise is an engine. Your uncle owns an old standard bike he keeps under a tarp in the garage. One Sunday, he lets you sit on it in the driveway, engine off, just to feel the weight of it between your legs. It's heavier than you expected, low and solid, and you understand instantly why people describe motorcycles as something you wear rather than something you ride. You start reading everything: engine types, frame geometry, the difference between a sport bike and a cruiser, and an adventure bike. Why some engines rev to 15,000 RPM and others barely reach 6,000. None of it is required. All of it feels essential. At night, you lie awake replaying the sound of that first bike rounding the corner, trying to guess what it was from memory alone, certain that one day you'll know these machines well enough to name one blind. Level 2. The Learner. You're 16, and the bike is a second-hand 125cc, bought for a few €100 from a classified ad, chosen because it's what your license allows and what your savings can afford. It has a dent in the tank and an exhaust that pops on deceleration, and you love it completely. Your father insists on the training course before you're allowed to ride it on the road. You spend 2 Saturdays in an empty car park doing figure eights and emergency stops with an instructor shouting corrections you don't fully understand yet. You drop the bike twice at walking pace, feel your face burn with embarrassment both times, and pick it up anyway because that's the deal you made with yourself. The first ride on an actual road is terrifying in a way nothing has prepared you for. Every car feels like it's aimed at you. Every drain cover looks slick. You ride at exactly the speed limit, gripping the bars too tight, and you arrive home with your hands aching and a grin you can't wipe off. You learn the mechanics because you have to. You adjust your own chain. You learn to read tire wear. You lay the bike down once, low speed, misjudging a gravel patch, and you feel the specific shame of a rider who scared themselves rather than got hurt. You get back on within the hour. That's the lesson every rider learns at this stage, that the bike will humble you occasionally, and the only real failure is not getting back on. Level 3. The New Rider. You're 18 and you've passed your full license test on a bigger bike, a 500cc that felt enormous compared to the 125 you learned on. Your first real motorcycle is a used 600cc sport bike bought with money saved from 2 years of part-time work, the kind of bike that makes your parents nervous every time you leave the driveway. You service it yourself in your parents' garage because a shop visit costs more than you're willing to spend, and because you want to understand what's happening underneath you when you ride. You change your own oil, learn to check your own chain tension, replace your own brake pads with hands that are clumsy the first time and confident by the 5th. You start riding to work every day, regardless of weather, because that's when you actually learn to ride, not on sunny Sunday afternoons, but in rain and wind, and the particular fear of black ice you can't see until you're already on it. You lay the bike down a second time, this one at speed, sliding 30 meters down a roundabout because you trusted a line that wasn't there. You walk away with a bruised hip and a scraped fairing and a respect for the machine that no amount of reading could have taught you. You join an online forum for your bike's model and absorb advice from riders who've been doing this for 20 years. You start to understand that riding well is not about bravery. It's about reading the road 3 seconds ahead of where you are. You keep a small notebook of every close call and what caused it, a habit an older rider recommended, and rereading it months later, you notice the same mistakes showing up again and again until slowly they stop showing up at all. Level 4. The Weekend Warrior. You're 22 and you've found the group. 6 or 7 riders who meet at a petrol station every Sunday morning at 8 a.m., regardless of season. Most of them have been riding for a decade or more. You're the newest member and you know it. Riding at the back of the group, watching how the experienced riders position themselves through corners, how they signal to each other with hand gestures before a lead rider even needs to brake. You do your first proper tour that year. 4 days riding through mountain roads with luggage strapped to the back seat and a route planned around the kind of bends that don't show up on a normal commute. You learn what it means to ride for 8 hours in a day, the specific fatigue that settles into your shoulders and wrists, the ritual of stretching at every fuel stop. You upgrade your gear properly for the first time, a real armored jacket, proper boots, gloves rated for impact rather than just style. An older rider in the group tells you that gear is the only thing standing between a bad day and a very bad day. And you take that seriously after you watch him walk away from a low side that would have broken his hand without the gloves he was wearing. You start to understand the culture, the wave between riders passing on opposite sides of the road, the unspoken rule that you always stop for another rider pulled over on the hard shoulder. You're not fast yet, but you're becoming someone who belongs in this world. On one tour, a sudden storm strands the group 2 hours from the nearest town, and you spend that stretch riding in formation through sheeting rain, trusting the taillight ahead of you completely, and arriving soaked and freezing but somehow closer to those 6 strangers than you were that morning. That's when you understand riding is as much about the people beside you as the road ahead. Level 5. The Serious Enthusiast. You're 26, and the bike in your garage now is a proper sport bike with real power, the kind you couldn't have handled at 18 and could only just handle now. You've done your first track day, a full day on a circuit with an instructor, discovering that everything you thought you knew about riding on the road barely applies at speed with no traffic and no consequences for hard braking. Your first session, you brake far too early into every corner out of habit. By the third session, an instructor rides behind you and radios corrections, and you start trail braking properly for the first time, feeling the front tire load up under you in a way that road riding never taught you. You go back every few months. Your lean angles increase. Your knee touches down for the first time and you nearly crash from the shock of it happening. You start working on the bike more seriously too. Suspension adjustments, tire pressures for track versus road, understanding geometry in a way that goes beyond changing oil. You read about riders you admire, not just racers, but the engineers and testers who understand why a bike behaves the way it does. You realize that riding well and understanding the machine are the same pursuit approached from 2 directions, and that the best riders you've met are equally serious about both. You start keeping a maintenance log for the bike. Every service, every adjustment, dated and detailed. The same discipline that separates a rider who understands their machine from one who merely operates it. You start noticing things other riders miss. A slightly uneven tire wear pattern that hints at a suspension setting worth revisiting, a faint vibration at certain speeds that most people would simply ignore. The bike talks constantly if you're paying attention, and by now, you've learned its whole language. Level 6. The Club Member. You're 30 and you've joined a proper riding club, not just a loose Sunday group, but an organized association with a clubhouse, a committee, and members who've been riding together for 30 years. You take on a role organizing routes for new members, the same role someone once filled for you. You mentor a rider who just got his license, watching him make the same mistakes you made, resisting the urge to overcorrect him because you remember how it felt to be told everything at once. You do a long-distance tour that year, 3,000 kilometers over 2 weeks, camping most nights, riding through weather that ranges from desert heat to mountain sleet in the same week. You learn what your body can actually endure and what your bike can actually endure, which turns out to be more than you expected of both. You start to understand the club's older members differently now, the ones who've been riding for 4 decades and talk about bikes they owned in the 70s with a specific tenderness. You realize you're becoming one of the people newer riders look to for guidance, and that responsibility changes how carefully you ride, because a mistake now isn't just yours to carry. You lead the club's annual charity ride for the first time that year, 300 bikes rolling through town together, and standing at the front of that column, you understand what the older members meant when they talked about riding as something bigger than any single rider. The new rider you've been mentoring passes his advanced skills course that same year, and watching him ride off afterward with visibly more confidence than he arrived with, you recognize the exact feeling your own mentors must have had watching you. Level 7, the racer. You're 35 and you've entered your first amateur race series, a step you avoided for years because you weren't sure your riding could survive real competition. Your first race weekend humbles you completely. Riders who look ordinary at the petrol station transform into something else entirely on the grid, carrying corner speed that seems to defy the bike's limits. You finish near the back of your first race and feel simultaneously embarrassed and more alive than you felt in years. You commit properly after that. You get a proper race bike, stripped of anything unnecessary, suspension revalved for your weight and riding style. You train your body specifically for racing, core strength for the physical demands of holding a racing tuck for 25 minutes, neck strength for the G-forces through fast corners. You crashed twice that first season, both times at speeds that would have ended badly without proper gear, and both times you're back on the bike within a month. Your times improve steadily. By your third season, you're finishing mid-pack against riders who've been racing for a decade, and other competitors start asking you for setup advice after sessions. Racing teaches you something road riding never could. The exact edge of what a tire can hold, the precise moment before a slide becomes a crash. Knowledge that makes you a safer rider everywhere else, too. You keep every lap time from every session in a spreadsheet. Tenths of a second shaved away race by race, proof on paper of a process that from the inside just feels like showing up and trying again. A younger rider on the grid asks you, after a race, how you stayed so calm through a moment when two bikes touched wheels ahead of you at speed. You tell him the truth, that calm isn't something you feel, it's something you practice until it becomes the only option left. Level 8, the builder. You're 42, and the project in the corner of your garage is a stripped-down cafe racer, built from a donor bike that was rusting in a barn when you found it. You've been riding for nearly 30 years now, and building has become as satisfying as riding, the slow process of understanding a machine completely by taking it apart and putting it back together exactly as you intend. You rewire the electrical system yourself. You modify the frame geometry slightly for the riding position you want. You spend evenings after work in the garage with nothing but the radio for company, working at a pace that has nothing to do with deadlines. Younger riders at the club start asking you for advice on their own projects, and you find yourself teaching the way older riders once taught you, showing rather than just telling, letting people make small mistakes on parts that don't matter so the lesson sticks. Your reputation in the local riding community has grown into something you didn't set out to build. People bring you bikes with problems other mechanics couldn't solve. You still race occasionally, still tour every summer, but the building has become its own pursuit. Connected to riding, but not dependent on it. You started documenting each build now, photographs of every stage from rusted donor bike to finished machine, and a small following online has grown around watching that process unfold. Strangers messaging to say the videos talked them into finally starting a project of their own. Level 9, the legend. You're 58 and you've been riding for 45 years. Your garage holds 6 bikes spanning 5 decades of motorcycle history, each one maintained and ridden regularly, because a bike that doesn't run is a bike that's dying. You've ridden on 4 continents. You've built bikes that other riders now own and cherish. The club you joined at 30 elected you president twice. And though you stepped back from that role, younger members still call you when they need advice nobody else can give them. You still ride every week, rain or shine, because the specific clarity that comes from being fully present on 2 wheels has never once gotten old. On a Saturday morning, a father brings his 13-year-old son to the clubhouse because the boy hasn't stopped talking about motorcycles since he heard one pass their house. You recognize the look on the kid's face immediately. You sit him on your oldest bike in the car park, engine off, just to let him feel the weight of it, the same way your uncle once did for you. He doesn't know yet what the next 45 years will hold. The falls and the long tours, and the friendships built at petrol stations, and the quiet satisfaction of an engine you rebuilt yourself running clean. He just knows that something in him responds to this, and that's exactly how it starts for everyone who ends up living this life. You think back to your uncle's tarp-covered bike in the driveway, to the poster above your desk, to the 2 low-speed drops that nearly talked you out of riding before you'd even started, and you understand now that none of it was wasted. Every fall taught you something the falls before it couldn't. Somewhere right now, a kid is staring at a poster of a rider leaning into a corner, feeling something they don't have words for yet. They'll find the words. The road will teach them. If you rode along with this one, hit like, share it with a fellow rider who'd get it, and subscribe for the next Life as Every Rank.